Rima Marrouch is currently a journalist, a fellow journalist, and she's a fellow at the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism at Oxford University. She contributes to a website called Rasef, R-A-S-E-E-F 22, and this is actually a pretty interesting website based out of Beirut, experimenting with both English and Arabic and sort of social media. You should check it out. Before Oxford, she was a field producer at NPR, as I mentioned earlier, and before that, she worked with the LA Times and the Hayati newspaper. She's a graduate of NYU, so she was here a few years ago. She has an MA in journalism, and before that, she lived in Poland, but she's originally from Homs.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Muhammad. Yeah, it's good to be back. I want to speak about the field that I know of. Every conflict has its own set of challenges when it comes to media coverage. And when you go to journalism school at NYU or any other place, you learn several rules of your profession. One of them is objectivity. And not advocating any, that is American school of journalism, very different from European or French, European or Arab journalism. The other rule is being a witness on the ground. Another rule is talking to all sides of the conflict. And then you start covering Syria, and you realize that the rules that you've been taught that are great and wonderful are more difficult to implement than you thought. I see that there are several problems with Syria's coverage. First of all, the lack of access. If you want to be talking to all sides of the conflict, you need to have access to all sides of the conflict. And sadly, we've noticed among the journalists, we coined the term the dirty team and the clean team. The clean team would go on government visas to Damascus. They would always follow the rules of the game, would never cross the borders from the northern territories. And the dirty team was the team who just got tired of waiting for government visas. Because even if you get the visa, you have 7 days. You have to work with a minder or 2 minders, so it's really difficult to get the story out. But there are some of the people who are doing really great job and managing to get a glimpse of the reality in Damascus. Anne Bernard of the New York Times is one of these people. She's been lucky. She got several government visas. Not lucky. She's a very good journalist. Sorry. Then you have also the dirty team, and this is not much easier. There was a moment where the gates have been opened, the crossings in the north, Bab al-Salam, Bab al-Hawa, Ma'bar Jarablus were opened for journalists so they could cross. But sadly, with the increased number of kidnappings and killings, Syria is the deadliest country for the press, according to CPJ Index, the Committee to Protect Journalists. Many media outlets are not allowing their journalists simply to go in because the risk is high. So we come across another ethical problem with Syria's coverage, which is the use of freelance work. Where do you draw a line? There are some media outlets like BBC, NPR, Channel 4, who draw a policy that they are not accepting any freelance work because they just don't want to have someone on their conscience. But also, if you do this policy, you don't have information from the ground. And I don't know, guys, if you remember, but in December 2013, there was a case of a young activist and photographer. His name was Mulhem Barakat, and he was killed in Aleppo while he was taking photos of clashes at Al-Kindi hospital. So he was stringing for Reuters, and his death caused a lot of debate among especially photographers, saying, what should have been done and what should have not been done. There are several simple things that could be done. A lot of local journalists don't have hostile environment training. They don't have first aid training, which not sure if it helps, but many journalists, and I was lucky to be on such a training, you just know more and can act quicker. That is one of the problems. And also there is a problem of the so-called remote coverage, as Anthony Shadid used to call it. It's, if you take any piece, whether it's wire story or radio or TV, if you go to the actual sourcing of the news, you would notice how many of the information is based on according to activists or according to the Human Observatory for the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which is a UK-based group that has a large network of activists inside, or according to amateur YouTube videos that have. It's a great resource, and I think amateur YouTube videos have done more for Syria's coverage than many other. But you know, the whole idea of journalism was to be there, and you have a local reporter or a foreign reporter, whoever who would report that story. So there is a conflict with another rule of journalism, which is that there is no story worth your life, and there is the rule of being a witness and telling people's story. So as you can see, we are left with a lot of challenges and more unanswered questions. Iraq was also a very difficult story to cover. Journalists were just kind of imprisoned in their compounds, and oftentimes it was the local Iraqi staff that would leave and report. But at least I have a feeling that they were there. They could sense the general atmosphere. They could sense what people are talking about. Syria's coverage has been, largely as it's today. It has not been always like that, but that's the grim reality of Syria's coverage today. And another point, if I may add, the final one, but it's a small thing, and you will probably say that I'm saying that because I'm a woman. But also, when you just look at the stories, even before it became a story of toys and boys, or boys or toys, you really, if you see how many women are quoted in these stories, and I catch myself doing it as well. You know, we just, you know, I guess men are more, you know, you're seen like you have more authority, so we always go and quote you. But yeah, more women should be quoted in these stories. Thank you.